Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Wisdom in the Best Books and Films, where we find bite-sized nuggets of truth and use them to become better people. I'm Jake Bear, the host, and this week we are going to do our final thought from the Pendragon Cycle. We will be continuing in the second book, Merlin. I don't go into the third book because it seems the TV show does not extensively go into the third book. I don't know if they're planning on more later or not, but the first two books have been done on the show. It was, I thought, really well done. So if you enjoyed the books, or if you would like to see what the books are about, go check out the TV show. It's on the Daily Wire. So this week we will be doing our last thought from a King Arthur themed thing. Next week we will have one more short story that we will read that will be a story that I think is largely inspired by Arthurian type things with knights and heroes, people protecting the weak. One of the big themes from King Arthur stories is that might does not make right, meaning strength is not mean just because you're stronger than someone doesn't mean that you have the right to make them do what you want them to. Instead, strength and power and might is used to protect and serve people, which I think is wonderful. So next week we will be doing a last short story in that area. Today we're doing Merlin. Before I do today's episode, I do want to point out that I was recently invited to be on a podcast for material science called Materialism, a material science podcast that is co-hosted by Taylor Sparks and Andrew Falkowski. Taylor interviewed me a couple of months ago, and that showed up on their podcast just last week. I haven't talked much about my own work on this podcast because it's not really relevant to what we normally talk about. I am a professor of mechanical engineering, but my research is in material science and engineering. I work at Oklahoma State University. If you are interested in learning a little bit about material science or research, feel free to check out his podcast. The episode I was in is episode 115 on phase field modeling. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you check that out. It's a great podcast, and they do a good job of bringing things to people in a way that they can understand and get interested in. The link will be in the show notes if you want to find it here. No more diversions. Let's get on to this week's episode. It is called Forgive Yourself. Here it is. So many failures. So much wasted time and effort. Time and again I had been given opportunities, and I had wasted them. Time and again I had held back when I might have acted more swiftly, more forcefully. Why? Why had I done this? I did not have to continue in my ignorance and disgrace. Knowing the difference, I could choose the higher way. End quote. In Merlin, Book 2 of the Pendragon Cycle by Stephen R. Lawhead, even Merlin Emrys wrestles with regret. The great prophet who commands kings, who moves stones, who shapes history itself, looks back and sees missed chances and wasted time. He wonders whether the slow coming of the kingdom of summer is his fault. He blames his short-sightedness, his lack of faith, his hesitation. It is a profoundly human moment. Merlin judges yesterday's actions using today's understanding, and that is something we are all very good at. With new knowledge, hindsight feels like clarity. We look back and think, I should have known. I should have acted sooner. I should have done better. We measure our former selves by our current insight and find only failure. But that is an unfair trial. Yesterday's version of you did not possess today's wisdom. Growth means you now see what you could not see before. That is not proof of your worthlessness. It is proof that you have learned. There is even a trace of pride in Merlin's despair. He wishes he had acted more forcefully, more perfectly, almost as if the weight of God's entire plan rested on his shoulders. But Merlin's task was never to accomplish all of God's purposes. It was to be faithful in what he had in the moment given to him. His mother, Caris, answers him with simple mercy. Quote, My hawk, forgive yourself as you have been forgiven. Your failings are not unique to you alone. End quote. God is not wringing his hands over our past. His work moves forward even when we stumble. His grace is sufficient not only to cover sin, but to redeem failure. Often the hardest person for us to extend grace to is ourselves. We know our thoughts. We know the warnings we ignored. We know how capable we should have been, but our failings are not unique. We are not the first to hesitate, not the first to misunderstand, not the first to fall short of what we now see clearly. God works with imperfect people. In fact, He has no other kind to work with. Forgive yourself, trust Him, and step forward into the work of today with the light you now possess. That does it for this week's episode of Wisdom in the Best Books and Films. If you enjoyed, please leave a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever it is you listen. Give us a 5-star review so more people can find the show. Share it with your friends. Share it with family. Share it with people that you don't even know. I appreciate everybody who spreads the word about the podcast and helps us to grow. With that, please come again next week, and we will have another bit of wisdom for you to hear.